to be here today. You'll see me reference my notes here, and I'll be going back and forth so I can pay attention to the chat. But my name is Amber G. Johnson. I am the founder of Gale's Futuristic Fire, and I've been working in the industry since 2019, 2020, serving as a sales associate and range safety officer. And I since moved into firearm sales at gun shows as a responsible person for other FFLs. And since getting my own FFL, I've decided to offer FFL transfer services to my clientele. So today on this live, we're going to be talking about the 5 things you need before hitting the range. I know oftentimes we get to the range and you think everything that you need is there, which is true, but I want to help you make sure that every time that you come to the range that you have what you need already on hand so you can just keep coming back and all you need to show up with is closed-toed shoes. So of course, when we're thinking about 5 things every new gun owner needs before hitting the range, you want to consider, of course, the proper firearm, right? You want to make sure you're not bringing anything that is something that what's the best way to put it? If it is an item where the ammunition is not permitted on the range, you want to make sure that you call. There's different ammo sizes that are not different high capacity calibers that are not allowed on certain ranges, especially steel casing. You just want to make sure that you go to these gun shows and things of that nature, and you pick up steel casing and you get it for cheap. You want to make sure that that's just something that you don't bring on the range because things like that can cause fires and you don't want to be the person that started it, okay? Of course, when you're choosing the right firearm, you're always going to go by what works for you. Most ranges have rental guns that you can rent from for a fee, excuse me, from $15 to $20. But sometimes, if you go to the range with me and you book me for Gale's Futuristic Fire, you get to choose from different options, and that's usually a luxury depending on the different type of instructor that you decide to go with. But of course, your first firearms purchase is one that is going to be something that you are able to make a decision based on your own experience with that firearm. I always tell people that you should never buy a firearm that you've never shot, and just because somebody told you that it's something that you should get because of the size of your hands or because of your anatomy, you just want to make sure that you've actually picked it up yourself and shot it. Number two, of course, when you're using the right ammo, you want to consider the caliber, grain, and the safety of the ammo. And of course, let's say if you purchase a Glock 19 that is chambered in 9mm, you want to make sure when you go to Academy Sports and Outdoors that you purchase 9mm target rounds, and they'll usually say something like FMJ 115 grain or 124 grain on the box. You want to make sure that you're buying target rounds because defensive rounds are for what? Self-defense. You don't want to be using the wrong rounds for the wrong situation. All right. And of course, when you go to these ranges, they'll already have some things in stock, but you have to consider that a lot of these options that are being made available to you at the range are also a little bit priced differently based on what you might get, let's say, at a one-off sports store. Okay. And of course, always check your guns manual, then get your hands-on training before heading to the range. So when you book with me through Gale's Futuristic Fire, it's an all-inclusive experience. But if you have a firearm, I do allow you to bring it with you so that I can make sure that you have what you need, especially if you need some like CLP, which is cleaning, lubricant, protectant. It's just a simple sort of liquid that you can use on your firearm to just knock out those 3 different needs to keep it in the right maintenance need. Let's see. You also want to make sure you're invested in high quality protection. So eye protection and ear protection. I know some of you have gone to the range before and you've got those rental ear protection and it doesn't have any sort of extra features on it. Like there's no Bluetooth features, which is not necessarily required for you to have success as a shooter. But especially if you are on the range with someone else, or if you want to be able to hear the instructions of the range safety officer, it's important that you invest a little bit more in your gear as a firearms owner. I always recommend electronic ear protection. You can find it on online websites. I love the um, electronic ear protection simply because it reduces the decibel sound of the bullet and it amplifies the sound of your voice. And of course, we wear ear protection on the range to ensure that you do not lose your hearing because of the experience that you're having while learning shooting sports. And I'm going to try my best to pay attention to the chat while we are engaging in discussion. But I want to make sure I get through these tips in a timely manner so that you guys can get what you need. And then this live can be saved and you can review it at any time in the future. All right. So your range bags essentials. All right. Extra magazines, cleaning kit, targets, hand wipes and first aid, and a notebook for checking your progress. So the notebook is something that I like to bring, just something as simple. I keep it in my range bag to help me to get a better understanding of where my shot placements are going, how many shots, how many rounds I'm getting down on the range, how much time I'm spending on the range. It's just a good way for me to get a better understanding of how much time I'm putting in, but also what type of improvements need to be made. I know we take a lot of pictures with our targets, and we really don't have the skills to be able to assess what's happening on our target, whether it's too much trigger pull or slapping the trigger or improper grip or just straight up not using the sights correctly. These are things that I've learned as a professional to be able to assess one of my own students, but there are also skills that I've been able to use to be able to assess my own shot placement on target for those situations where it's really not smart to take the target home or if I'm shooting at steel, right? So hand wipes and first aid. I love the D-lead hand wipes that you can find on online. They're referred to as lead off. I'll make sure that my Amazon link is dropped below. So of course, most, if not all, ranges should have D-lead, the letter D, Lead soap. After you leave the range, you need to be washing your hands with that soap, and you need to also follow with antibacterial soap after you have washed your hands with that particular soap. That soap is actually made for the climate of the range itself, and when you are on the range, you get different types of substances on your hands that you don't want to bring with you if you like to go to brunch after the range or go walk your dog, feed your kids. You want to make sure that you're getting all that lead off of your hands before you go move on to any other activities. I personally like to bring a change of clothes after the range because honestly, I'm a little social when I get to the range. Okay, I always end up shooting somebody else's stuff, and one thing about it, when you're shooting other people's things, you don't know the condition of it. Sometimes it's dirty. Uh, Sometimes the range itself is just dirty, and once you get a little bit more used to the climate of the range, you'll see, nicer ranges. You'll feel the AC blowing that target to get to moving because there's proper circulation in the range. And then there's other ranges the air can feel a little stagnant. If you little match, everything might set on fire. So you're not really in control of conditions. But I want you to be mindful of things that you can't control, like how much lead you are bringing home to your own domicile. And one thing I always like to do is just bring an extra change of clothes. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but as for me in my home, I like to bring a little extra clothes just in case I decide to go somewhere else after, or just to make sure that I'm not bringing lead into my car because, I have my nieces and nephews who might ride with me. I have other family members, friends who might ride with me. You get the gist, okay? Especially if you're putting food in your car when you're grocery shopping, you just cannot track how much lead you are bringing into that specific car, but also taking into spaces where you're actually eating and drinking. Okay, so to reduce the amount of lead that we're actually putting into our bodies, I try to be mindful of changing my clothes at the range after I've washed my hands, and changing into clothes that are a little bit more comfortable and suitable for the next activity. Of course, a first aid kit is extremely important because we are new shooters, right? And new shooters usually do things that are not what experienced shooters do. Well, I can't say that because everybody doesn't have, proper training and proper training on the handling of firearms safely. So there's this thing called slide bite. So if you are not properly gripping the firearm, that slide will go from forward, backward, and you will get little bruises on your hands. And they will usually lay right here under the thumbs. So I mean, I think it's probably a good way to, a guy try to take you on the range for a date, check his thumbs. I mean, I've done it. I'm a little bit more anal in that regard, because you're already telling me that just because you like to take me to this place because you think this is something I'm interested in, you might not be the best person to teach me, but this could be a great learning experience for the both of us. All right. All right. So we bring first aid kits to make sure that we have the proper cleaning materials if we do have slide bite on the range. And of course, there are other injuries that can occur on the range, but as new shooters, slide bite is a common injury that may happen, um, especially when the grip is not corrected in a timely manner. And more than likely, of course, when I was an RSO, I used to go a little bit overboard. I used to make sure I had a first aid kit on hand, and I used to make sure that the grip was corrected even though I was not teaching at the time, just because I don't like to see people lose interest in shooting because of improper training. Okay. Targets. Yes, you can buy targets at the range. They usually are about $2.50 per sheet, but you can easily go to, if you'd like, you can go to Office Depot or something like that. You can print off the computer some targets off Google, and that's less than 50 cents per sheet, and it is your own scoring. You can shoot, you can print 8.5 by 11 sheets, because honestly, in my opinion, the smaller the target, the better your aim. What I was taught when I was coming up in the industry was to aim small, miss small. So we used to practice on 1-inch pieces of tape. That's how I was trained how to shoot. And that might not be everybody's way of shooting, right? But if you'd like to be cost effective, if you'd like to encourage yourself to get return to the range in the future, you should always invest in your own targets. You can print them out at home, you can print them out at Office Depot, you can go on Canva and design something up if you like. But bringing your own targets allows you to just get a little bit more involved in your own shooting sports curriculum. You don't always have to go to the range and depend on them to provide everything you need. Because what if one day their printer distributor decides that they don't want to give them any more $2 targets? So now you got about a $5 target that's for competitive shooting, and you didn't plan to do that. Those are situations that rarely happen because targets are in abundance at most ranges. But when you actually invest in your own shooting, it sort of builds up your confidence, because once you get your own little range bag and you got your own stuff and you can pull up and you got your stuff and you check in, all you got to do is pay for your range time. It's impressive as the sales associate. When I used to stand on that other side of the counter and I used to see women come in with their range bag, they say, "Oh, wow, all I need is range time." When they don't have to ask me for ear protection or eye protection, I love it, because it's like, okay, you are prepared. You ain't worried about nobody sanitizing the ear protection or the eye protection properly. Because let me tell you, these rangers ain't required to do nothing more than Lysol wipe and disinfect wipe and disinfect spray these items, okay? And you've seen these sales associates behind these counters. Uh, if their face ain't washed, if you seen a little cold in their eye, you can just assume that they are not doing the proper handling of the things that you are coming in to rent from the firearm. So, I mean, from the range, excuse me. So you could assume that these rental firearms have not been cleaned in ages. You could assume that the eye protection and the ear protection might break you out if you have sensitive skin. So I highly suggest that you bring your own. Get it in pink. Get it bedazzled. Do what you want. You know what I'm saying? Just make sure your eye protection is ANSI rated, ANSI. All right. Other than that, you should be fine. And of course, if you come to Gale's Futuristic Fire, all of that is included, and the ear and eye protection, including the ammunition, you can keep. Okay, so next we talked about extra magazines, and I talked about extra magazines because most folks, if you're buying a firearm the proper way, you will receive at least 2 magazines inside of that box. All right, you need extra magazines for the sake of once you get into more serious shooting situations, whether it's competitive or self-defense, you might need to make a reload. All right. And a lot of you who've taken my class, you know that tap, rack, roll, and proceed is what I love to cover once you guys get a little bit more in depth in taking those classes with me. But those reloads are essentials, and having that extra mag is just important because you just never know. You might freeze up, drop the mag ends up on the other side of the table, and now the RSO has to call a code range so you can get your mag off the other side. And 9 times out of 10, these ranges don't have the help that they need, you know? So you're going to have to wait a few minutes for somebody to call code range, get a broom, get your mag, give it back to you. And if they even cleaning the range like they supposed to, there might be some residue on it, some lead residue. So now you got to go clean that off, bring it back. I mean, I'm a little bit more of a stickler. I don't like, picking stuff off from the other side of the range table of the bay. I don't like to pick stuff back up and just go back to shooting. If I absolutely have to, I try to avoid it. And a big way of avoiding that is let the RSO know, but always have your second mag on go. All right. Oh, I like the way that sounds. Okay. Um, Next, you want to have a basic gun safety and training plan. Of course, you should know the 5 firearm safety rules. There are 4 universal ones that most curriculum cover, but I like to include 5 because there's always going to be a situation where you might drop a handgun, and I just want to make sure people don't try to go after it. All right. So actually, real quick, we're just going to go over those 5 firearm safety rules so that you and I know that you're prepared for your next range visit. Okay. Number 1, you should always treat every firearm as if it's loaded. I could hand you a dummy gun right now. You could know it's fake, but I need you to treat it like it's a real firearm, because if the habits that you build as a firearms owner, even in a classroom, even with fake firearms, even with BB guns and water guns, those habits are the same habits that you will bring onto the range and in a self-defense scenario. And I just want to make sure that you have the right habits no matter what type of firearm you're dealing with. All right. Number 2, you want to keep your finger off the trigger until you are prepared to shoot. Excuse me. I always have my clients index their index finger onto the slide so that they can show me and the RSO that they are not ready to shoot and that they are listening to directions. Okay. You never want to have your finger on the trigger and you get startled. I know we get on the range for the first time and you hear someone shooting the shotgun 2 lanes over and you get to jumping. You cannot predict whether or not your finger is going to pull that trigger. So keep it indexed on the slide. Keep it indexed and exaggerated on the slide until you are prepared to shoot. And I always make sure that I encourage my clients inhale and exhale with a slow and steady trigger squeeze, because slapping that trigger is not going to make you more accurate. All right. All right. Number 3, always keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction. All right. Always keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction. There should never be a situation, of course, on the range, the safe direction is downrange, but there should never be a situation where you point it around. You point it at yourself. You trying to see where did the bullet leave? And oh, put it down. And I will gently smack your hand. All right. There is never a situation where the muzzle should be pointed at you. All right. Or anybody else that you do not plan to destroy. All right. And you should also be mindful of your target and what is around it. So you know you're shooting down range, right? So why are your shots on lane 5s? If you on lane 2, why are your shots on lane 5's target? What's going on? When we're considering the setup of being on the range, the lane that you are on represents your target. Anybody else's targets, whether they're 15 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, you want to make sure that you are not hitting their targets, because those targets represent bystanders. In self-defense scenarios, do we hit bystanders? No. No, we do not. Okay? And last but not least, never try to catch a falling handgun. Never. Because what happens when you try to catch things? Your hands close. And when your hands close, your fingers end up where? In the trigger guard. And when your fingers end up in the trigger guard while you're clenching that fist, what do you end up doing? Pulling the trigger. And now look at you. I don't believe there are accidents when it comes to firearms, only negligence. Okay? So, last but not least, confident and mindset. Your mindset affects your performance at the range. So handling range anxiety and intimidation is something that is going to be a you project, but it's going to be a me problem if it is putting your safety in jeopardy. Okay? All right. And of course, when you're training with a coach and instructor, it can boost your confidence. Every single one of my clients they've returned, and those that do return and they leave a review, you can go through the reviews and they let you know that they feel more confident in their ability to protect themselves, and they feel more confident in their ability to return to the range without an instructor. Do they? No, because my clients love me. All right. But we want to make sure that you're not comparing yourself to others and you're focusing on your own progress. I know once you get your first firearm and you develop your skills, you want to get online, you want to look up hashtag concealed carry and hashtag women's range day, and you see all these people on the internet doing these real fast dry fire drills, and you want to do it too. But without proper training and instruction, you can have a really serious incident. Okay. And I want you to be coached and equipped with the education that you need before you go out there and you start doing things that you're not really 100% ready to do. Okay. So, of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. Those are my 5 tips for those of you ready to hit the range this spring. You see, I got my arms out. It was 76 degrees today. I hit the range today with my little dress on. Um, the haters was mad. They was looking. They was expecting me not to be able to do what I was supposed to do, but I had my range bag. I was fully equipped, and I even was able to give a band-aid to a nice, handsome young man who was trying to tell me what to do on the range, but he experienced slide bite on the range. So that's none of my business. But we ladies, we take care of our business. We do our thing on the range. And last but not least, I want to let you guys know for tax season, I've dropped a refund and reload package, $250, all inclusive, buy two, get one free. And it's for you and anyone else you like to be interested to come onto the range to experience Gale's Futuristic Fires Range Dually experience. Everything is included, and then there will be a giveaway black bag with some very vital information that I might have mentioned today. I also wanted to make sure that you guys know ear and eye protection is so important. Okay, don't get skippy with it. Those of you that have prescription glasses, you want to make sure that you're investing in eye protection that can go over those I don't know why I can't talk tonight. Prescription glasses, so that you can see what you're doing, but also be safe. All right. We don't want anybody to shoot their eye out, kid. Okay. I hope y'all have an amazing night. You can find out more about me at Gail's Futuristic Fire on Instagram. You can follow my personal page at The Amber GJ on Instagram. And if you'd like to book with me, learn more about my services, you can go to futuristicfire.com to learn more. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more tips. And, put in the comments things you'd like for me to share, whether it's story time, whether it's, I don't know, anything you like to know. Just put it in the comments. Don't be shy. This is a platform for us to be able to build community. And, even if you don't live in my state, it's an opportunity for you guys to learn from me in a more relaxed way that's not as touch and go as Instagram. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope you have an amazing night.